salads and showing you a couple of knife skills, stove safety skills, as well as making up a fresh vinaigrette and a shaker salad that you'll be able to make up ahead of time and keep in your refrigerator for lunch for the next day. So let's work on our first thing, our knife skills. We're going to come right over here to our cutting board. And a couple of things. There's three main parts of a knife. We have our blade, which is the sharp end, the handle, which is the end that we hold, and then we have the hilt. That's the section where the blade and the handle meet. So the way I like to hold my knife is I take my thumb and my pointer finger and I make an L. And I wrap my thumb on one side of the blade and I take my pointer finger and wrap that around. So I'm basically pinching my blade between my fingers. Then I take my other three fingers and I curl them underneath my handle. This allows me to have a little bit more control of my blade, and it's my comfortable and preferred style of holding it. Next, we're going to start working on breaking down some apples that we're going to be putting into our salad. So first thing I did is I peeled my apple. Next, I'm going to cut on either side of the center core and just do a nice quick cut. Notice what I'm doing with my fingers. I'm keeping my fingers curled underneath, so if I do come in contact with my blade, it's not my fingertips, but the front of my fingers. Just coming down, nice cut, turn it around, another cut. We're gonna go two more, 1, 2, and we scored our apple so far. The next thing we're gonna be doing is we're gonna go down and turn it and dice these apples. So again, making sure I have a claw, I'm just gonna come through and do my horizontal cuts. All right, and again, making sure I got that claw. Couple more times. And now once I have all my horizontal cuts, I'm going to be going with my vertical cuts to make my cubes. It's as simple as that. I'm going to continue to cube up the rest, dice up the rest of this apple. And notice as I'm cutting, my knife isn't leaving the cutting board. It's actually staying on the cutting board, similar to the front wheels of a locomotion. That way, I don't have to worry about cutting myself or anything like that as my blade leaves my cutting board. Obviously, once I'm done, I'm going to put my knife down, and I'm going to take all of my apples that I just diced up, transfer them to another container, and set them aside for later. All right, folks. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is our stove safety. Whenever I'm working with my stove, one thing I like to do is if my stove has a flame operating, I like to make sure that I always have that in the back of my mind, and I'm never leaving something on my stove while my stove is cooking without it being at my attention. Another thing we like to do is, if this is a traditional 4-burner stove, when we're cooking, we're going to want to make sure our handles are turned inward. That way, if we're moving throughout the kitchen or anything like that, there's no risk of us bumping the handle and spilling whatever we have in our pot. Also, if I am using a form of utensil, I'm not leaving it in my pot. I'm removing it after each time I'm using it and setting it aside on my stove. This way my handle's not going to heat up and I don't run the risk of burning myself. So, right now, with that being said, we're going to work on another component for our shaker salad. And that's going to be a lovely wheat berry grain. So right here I have my stove and my water starting to boil. And I'm just going to add my grain to it. Once I've added my grain, I like to stir it up. This way I don't run the risk of it sticking to the bottom of my pan. And again, I'm not using my utensil, so I'm going to remove it from my pan and just set it aside. What I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to allow my grains to heat up and come to a boil. And then once it comes to a boil, I'm going to cut it down to a low simmer and let that sit for a little bit. I don't have a lid on me right now, but I would cap it, put a lid on it, and then let it sit there for about 20 minutes on a low simmer, and then once it's done, turning my heat off. So this looks to be like it's coming to a boil right now, so I'm just going to turn it down to a low simmer. With that being said, I would now cap it and then set it aside. And thanks to the lovely, wonderful TV magic, I've already cooked and then cooled my grain to add to my salad right here. So this is that lovely wheat berry that we have. And again, just like our apples, we're going to set these aside for another component of our shaker salad. So the third component of our shaker salad is going to be our vinaigrette. So what I like to do is I like to take a mason jar, open that bad boy up, and I like to make a larger batch of my vinaigrette and keep it in my mason jar and leave it in my fridge. That way, whenever I want to use my shaker salad dressing or my dressing on any type of salad, I can just shake it, pull it out of my fridge, shake it up, and it's ready for my use. So, first thing we're going to do, add a little apple cider vinegar. Alright. Next, we're just going to add some oil. Now this oil may look a little bit different. We were just keeping it in a stored refrigerator, set aside, just so we could keep our products that we're using today separate so they weren't used on us. But normally, you can use any type of vegetable oil, canola oil, sunflower oil, whatever type of oil you prefer. We're going to add a little bit of oil. And this creates the basic two components to our vinaigrette. It's going to be two of the three components to our vinaigrette. It's going to be oil, vinegar, and then some form of seasoning. And now we're going to start adding our seasoning to it. I've already went through and pre-portioned out all of my seasonings. So now all I have to do is just dump them right into my vinaigrette, shake my vinaigrette, and it's ready for use. So we have some black pepper. I'm going to dump that right in there. We have some coarse ground salt, dump that right in there. Some onion powder, dump the onion powder in. Garlic powder. Some basil, dried. Some dried oregano as well. A little bit of sugar. And then just a little honey mustard to add to it. So it's going to be an apple cider honey mustard vinaigrette. But you can really make use any type of vinegar, any type of oil, and any type of seasoning to your vinaigrettes. I'm just going to remove and change my gloves since they are dirty. And now that I have all my components together, I can take my mason jar, invert it, and just give it a nice, vigorous shake. And what I'm looking for as I'm shaking, making sure that everything is incorporated really well, and there aren't any clumps of seasoning or anything like that inside of my dressing container. And we're all good. So, as you can tell, I made up a larger batch of my vinaigrette. So now I can store it in my refrigerator for a couple of months and use it periodically as I make my shaker salad. So we're just going to set this aside and we're going to start creating our shaker salad, folks. So, obviously the shaker salad gets its name from the ability to shake it. So this is a really good salad that you can make up the night before. Have all your components separated. Incorporate them when you're ready to eat them, and then you're all set. So, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take some of the grains that we cooked, and then chilled. I'm going to add that to the bottom. And a lot of these ratios, you can change, add, lower some, increase other ones. It all depends on what you really like in your salad. Then, I'm going to get some lovely baby spinach. It's going to be our greens for our shaker salad. I'm going to put those in. Then I have some lovely feta cheese. Take a little handful of that. I also have some walnuts. Add a couple of walnuts. I have some of those apples left over that we had diced up earlier. Going to add those to my shaker salad. And also some grapes that I cut in half, just to give me a nice splash and pop of color and flavor. So, once we put all of our components in our mason jar, all we then have to do is add a little bit of our vinaigrette over the top. seal our shaker salad. And then just, again, same thing with the vinaigrette. Just give it a nice, vigorous shake to make sure that everything gets mixed up. And all of that dressing coats all of our greens and all of our other ingredients. That appears to be all good. Now what you can do is you can eat it directly out of the salad, out of the mason jar, or you can just dump it out on a nice plate. And there you go, folks. You have a beautiful shaker salad.